listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, August 31st, year of our Lord 2017, and you are listening to a Gen Pop Media production. We got Dave in traffic. I guess traffic's bad out there, so Hooper will be here in a few minutes. And we got Dave D back. He is back from the airport run.
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you.
And welcome back to his family that may or may not be listening.
They're not listening, but it's fantastic to have him back.
I heard the little one. I heard the little one's a big fan of the show.
She might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's on her level, actually.
Yeah.
She's 3.
Yeah, she gets it.
So she relates to us direct. But
well, I hear she's got a thing for Tito Howard. So.
Yeah. Well, Grace, my wife, she has a hard time with. I mean, she speaks English, obviously, but to listen to the show, it's kind of, it's a little bit tough. We talk fast and.
Gotcha. There's a lot of
there's no subtitles.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grace. I know you're not listening anyway, but
in case you ever are.
But she otherwise I think she might listen.
I gotcha. My wife listens occasionally.
Yeah. Well, she's better in that regard than Grace is. So.
I'm blessed with that. Her English is good.
Yeah, good. Like I said, her English is good. I think it's an excuse. She just doesn't want to listen to it.
I tend to side with that because I never thought your wife's English was all that.
No,
bad.
Actually, she's actually a licensed English teacher.
Yeah.
So go figure. But
yeah, right.
Anyway, whatever. I'll take the excuse. It's fine.
There you go.
She gets to hear my mouth all the time.
Well, they got back without North Korea blowing anything up.
He waited.
They waited until the day after.
He waited.
So
I couldn't. I just.
So we
couldn't
appreciate
even,
that. That's our buddy Un, right?
Thanks, Kim Jong. Yeah,
our buddy Un.
Thanks for waiting before freaking out the entire
speaking of
country of Japan.
Speaking of Korea, here's a completely useless fact that I figured out all on my own without Wikipedia. How Kim Jong Un's father was Kim Jong Il.
Yeah.
Okay, you know why that is, right?
No idea.
Because actually, in Korean, the first name Kim is actually what we would have as a surname. That's our last name. So in English, it would be Jung Un Kim. Kim being the last name.
Really?
Yeah, I figured this out from watching Korean dramas and Drama Fever.
You just exposed yourself as a Korean drama watcher.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Their barbecues the whip. So.
Oh, yeah, their barbecue's awesome. But I'm not a big kimchi fan, man.
Oh, I love kimchi.
I can't do it.
Oh, I love it.
It's kind of like a jar of nasty gym socks.
Sometimes. But, some... I can do me some kimchi, dude.
I'm willing to... I keep hearing that Cinch's kimchi is the shiznaz.
Who's? At church?
Yeah.
I believe it. She's Korean.
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
And but I've tried it a couple times and been like, unimpressed. And I like about anything.
Really?
Well,
and there's
only a couple things on the list,
like
right? Pork blood, and there's a couple things on the list I won't do.
I know, I gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha.
But I would everything that's in kimchi I like.
It's cabbage and hot stuff.
Yeah, but socks.
But it's fermented, right? So
yeah, they ferment in the backyard, right?
Well, that's the real way to make it. Is they actually bury it in clay jars and let it ferment. And the idea behind it is they eat it during the winter time, right? To keep warm, which isn't scientifically accurate anyway. But whatever, I'll go with it. So if you get real kimchi, because I don't really know if mine came out of a clay jar every time I eat it. It could just literally be pickled cabbage with some spices in it, and that's good, right? I'll take that, dude. But I like the sauerkraut. I like if it's spicy, dude, I'll eat
sauerkraut,
it. I'll
man.
eat it.
The kimchi I had it twice, and it was kind of ooh.
Yeah, I like the. Because I actually took a Korean Airlines flight, right?
Okay.
We were supposed to take it there, but it got all messed up and ended up taking it home. And airline's awesome, by the way. Planes are awesome. Everything's good. And they have, I can't remember the name of it, but the airplane food. You could choose for, have Korean food or whatever else they had. And you know me, I'll go for the Korean food, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
And it was like a kit. Someone out there knows what it's called. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's like bimbab or something like that.
Bimbab.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it comes in a kit, and it's like a plastic tube of Bondo hardener, but it's the pepper paste. It's in like a plastic tube, probably because it's corrosive. I don't know, but so you got to mix all this stuff together, and then you got to like build it. And I was like, dude, I'm totally into this. It was awesome. It's like kind of like a meat-like substance and some bean sprouts, and
I think it's like a Korean beef, and it's got all the different carrots.
It was awesome. Yeah, I mowed it. It was so good. So the pepper paste was the key because it was like, this is like Bondo hardener. This is awesome.
Yeah, the only non-American airline that I've flown on has been Philippine Airlines. Couple 4 times.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
No, dude.
There's no comparison. You get treated so much better. The food is better.
Planes are nice.
The planes are nicer and cleaner. The staff is way friendlier.
Yeah, the only airline I was on that wasn't a U.S. airline that was absolutely shady was China Air. That was a scary experience, dude. They're not trying to make the flight comfortable.
Oh,
they don't care. I mean, it's like a cargo pilot, delivering people. It's just like the takeoff's rough, the landing's rough. In flight, they don't even care. It was really kind of scary. We flew from Shanghai to Beijing.
Well, wouldn't China Air be government run? Because isn't everything government run over there?
Yeah.
Well, that's
but
why.
Can
you imagine how much worse American Airlines would be if they were run by the government?
Well, I mean, you'd think, but I do have to say that I do believe that Korean Airlines, Philippine Airlines, these are all, I believe, somehow affiliated with, subsidized through government.
Okay.
I don't think, I don't know this, but I'm assuming because they just do a decent job. I mean, that's. But if you fly Cebu Airlines, I've always been warned they're cheaper, but do not.
Yeah, that's
fly
the same thing
Cebu.
I heard.
It's like,
and when you get over there, the flights here that cost $500 cost like 79 cents.
Yeah, but they're always late. They're always canceling the flights. It's just horrendous. But other than that, man,
and that's the other thing too is the couple times I flew internationally, I was treated wonderfully. But when you grab the connector out of Manila and go down to Davao, you're treated even better. If you grab a domestic Philippine flight on Philippines Air,
it's awesome.
It's like twice as good as the international flight, which is already 5 times better.
Yeah, no, I always
than some crabby stewardess. Oh, what do they call it?
Flight attendant.
Sorry,
don't be misogynist.
Yeah, some. I'm sorry, I'm xenophobic.
Yeah,
some crabby flight attendant on American Airlines.
Yeah, getting kicked off a flight for some frivolous reason.
Yeah,
but no, flying in the Philippines is a I don't like flying anyway.
Not a big fan.
I don't like the experience, but I tell you what, the at least Davao Airport it's small, it's really cool. Manila Airport is for the birds.
Yeah,
that place is a nerve-wracking
it's insane.
Disaster.
It's insane.
But flying their airlines has always been awesome.
Imagine your worst big airport nightmare, and then add 500 baggage handlers trying to grab your stuff from you for 100 pesos.
Well, if you got to go because the airport's split into 2 terminals, right? So but they're not next to each other. You got to take a taxi.
Right.
So you end up at one terminal, and then you got to transfer to the other. So you have to go through Mad Max Thunderdome to get to the next terminal. And then once you're there, you're like, okay, cool, we made it without getting.
And you get in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It is Mad Max Thunderdome.
It is, dude.
At 4 or 5 o'clock in the
Wild
morning
West,
in Manila.
It's the Wild West. You're on your own.
People everywhere. Yeah,
totally on your own. You're waiting to get kidnapped by the taxi driver.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, wife and kids are back safe, man.
Excellent.
It's all good.
What's up with you, Tony? Tony D.
Same old, same old.
Yeah,
living the dream.
Just trying to enlighten people on Facebook. One.
Good for you.
One irresponsible person at a time.
I'm done with that.
What, Facebook?
I'm retired from talking to people on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I'll post my own selfish things that interest me, but I'm not engaging anymore. I can't take it. I even just see a blurb from, I'm just like, dude, I can't stomach it.
I'm letting a lot of it
I can't
go.
stomach talking to these people.
I'm like you, man. I just want to use it for my own selfish gains. We got a book to promote,
right?
And that kind of stuff. So I plan on being just as annoying with the stuff that I want to promote as the rest of my family is with dog pictures and
right. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't do it anymore. It just drives me crazy. But, for plugging the foundation, plugging the book, plugging the radio show, selling artwork or custom paint, I'll do it.
I just have to program myself to stop looking at my so-and-so posted in such and such.
I see that, and I'm just like, and I just kind of read the one sentence, and I'm like, puke. I'm not,
I gotta admit, though, that group there are some people who may not necessarily see eye to eye with us, but that group that Kat invited us to, it's really a breath of fresh air.
I can't even stomach that anymore.
Even if they don't agree with you, they're civil about it, and you're having a real conversation.
Well, that's cool.
It's a bunch of adults in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what I expect out of my non-Facebook friends that don't get.
They still put out a lot of propaganda, though.
They do, but there are certain members in that group that will point out that propaganda.
That's true.
There's this one guy named Tony.
Yeah,
that's not making any friends.
No, as he should not. That's not the point of it. He's got it. You have enough friends, right, Tony?
Yeah, I've got enough friends.
Yeah, you're good with friends.
I got plenty of friends.
Yeah, me too.
You're going to bring up something, then be willing to
own it.
Yeah.
If you're going to drop it, own it. Right?
As long as Dan from Cave is my buddy,
then we're good.
I got plenty of friends.
Then we're good.
The things that get you is these people that put something out there and claim that, it's not like it seems. You know what I mean? They'll throw something. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to link. Inevitably, it's about linking Trump to Nazism.
Sure.
That's what it's all about.
Of course, he's literally Hitler, right?
No, that's not what we're doing. No, I'm just bringing this up. Yeah, no, you're not. It says right here.
Yeah.
Right? This is, and you got to break it down.
Don't drop a B like that and then don't expect some backlash. Sorry.
I had to stop the TV last night watching one of the shows, and my son's sitting there, and I'm like, hey, I always do this. Stop the TV and have to say something. He's like, God, just keep playing. Stop. Don't pause it, And I was like, didn't I tell you about this, weeks ago? And the whole thing on the it might have been Tucker or something like that, or Handy or one of those. But they said, the whole thing, they're all surprised because now it's like they're linking this Trump to Nazis, and now it's okay to be a Trump supporter because they're
by
Nazi.
Default, right? Yeah,
by default,
of
they're
course.
not. It's and like so. What's her name? Pelosi comes out and finally denounces this Antifa.
Well, they have
stuff.
to. They have no choice now. Which actually, it could be argued that they're the ones that fueled it.
Oh yeah, it is.
Oh, they in the particular instance of Charlottesville, it was absolutely Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, but my point is like the Pelosi's. Let's just say like, the Democrat Party as a whole have been propping this stuff up and giving them airtime.
Yeah,
and allowing them to, and somehow claiming that a group like Antifa has anyone's best interest in mind is a joke.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're self-proclaimed anarchists, which doesn't align with just about anything in the civilized world. And they're violent. They have uniforms. They carry weapons. I think it was actually quite surprising, wasn't it? The governor of California, was it?
No, I think it was the governor of North Carolina.
Was it the one that said they? No, it was California because it's
Jerry Brown.
They said under California law, Antifa is actually a street gang, and they need to be treated as such as far as the law is concerned. They have laws in California about street gangs that are akin to hate crime laws, right? So if you are a gang committing crime, you get charged with crimes differently because it's gang-related.
Gotcha.
So he actually, and this is a hard leftist, is coming out saying that, Antifa we have to call it for what it is. They're literally a street gang.
Mm-hmm.
They're organized for the purpose of committing crime, according to their own manifesto.
Yep.
And they wear uniforms, and they are armed. So they should be charged accordingly.
You see him beating up that some guy. There was like 5 of them beating some guy up, and then another left. I guess the guy was a left reporter.
Mm-hmm.
A reporter on the left. Whatever you want to label him as.
Whatever, yeah.
But he's like getting over the guy and protecting him and stopping these guys, and it's just ridiculous to see. They were like bees, you know what I mean? They get somebody down, and all of a sudden they all start swarming and kicking. And
what's the mob? That's the mob mentality.
That's when they get the toughest. Is when somebody's on the ground.
That's how cowards operate.
Or when they knock down a statue.
You notice though, they're not doing this in places where people carry guns.
Yeah.
Because being attacked with sticks is a life-threatening event, and it's only a matter of time before they get in the wrong person's face. And that may very well be what they want.
Well, I think that's exactly
it probably
what they want.
is.
You know, and I think they would sacrifice their own members in order to gain, you know, for political gain. I'm sure they would invite that.
What politician would do that?
I'm talking about Antifa. You know, they would for sure. They can't wait until one of their people gets shot so they can go ahead and say, see, whatever, you know, and use that as a launch pad to make more violence.
And it's arguably that's what's going on right now. You see the buzzword going up around all the time now, Civil War. Everyone's mentioning this new Civil War, and it's all about everything that's going on. And I have to believe it all has to do with getting Trump out of office any way possible.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah, they're just attacking from every angle they can.
Yeah, but there's definitely, at least I think, there's definitely a bigger picture here that's always been going on in the background. But they've found a clever way to make it about Trump when really it never was really about him. It's about anarchy in general. But they couldn't they had 8 years where they couldn't focus on the White House. That wouldn't make any sense. But now, they'll use any excuse they want.
Right.
You know, they want to impeach Trump, but they have no basis for that desire whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, they want the president out, but I think that's just a new hashtag for them. They've always, you know, this idea of a new civil war. We already fought the Civil War, dude. If we try to refight it, that's just a big waste of time and money. Like, we're well beyond that. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. What they're claiming is ridiculous. And also what guys like neo-Nazis and KKK people are claiming is ridiculous. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
What's interesting is the people they're linking to these groups, which are not necessarily
but they can make up, you know, if they say it, right, it must be true.
Yep.
And if you disagree with them, you can read it in their own words. If you disagree with them, then you are a fascist, and they will beat you.
Right.
So they're promoting violence, they're promoting hate, at the same time claiming that they're against violence and hate. It's quite interesting.
If you're a tin hat guy like us, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It was talked about well before Trump was elected that this new administration would be about going after Second Amendment and the First Amendment. That's what was talked about for a long time.
Yeah,
and it's just funny how you can watch it happening. You know this is what's going on. You know, they talked about these riots and stuff going on for how long? I mean, this has been going on for a long time. They talked about it back with Occupy Wall Street.
Yep.
Right? That this is the stuff that's going to go on. It's going to keep ramping up, What's interesting now is they're kind of like tamping it down a little bit. So maybe they realize it's not going to work because they're not going to draw anybody into this. These
maybe
big clashes.
Not quite there yet. And they'll never get there. They'll have to take it. They have to do it by force because people like us, anyone around here, you could draw a circle on a map from where we are right now, and in, I don't know, 1,000-mile radius, how many of these type people are you going to find, really? Per capita type, you know, study. I think for the most part, people are just normal people like us just doing their thing. Nobody cares.
Most people don't even pay attention to that.
Why would you? Why would you? I mean, that's ridiculous. You see the guy that allegedly got attacked because of his haircut and made it all up.
Yeah, I was going to tell you about that, yeah.
I laughed so hard when I saw that. I'm like, of course he did. This is ridiculous.
Well, it sounded ridiculous to start with. Yeah.
It kind of did, but I also think
it wouldn't be out of the spectrum for that to happen.
No, I actually expected that to start happening.
So did I.
But, yeah, he made it up, and because he caught himself with a pocket knife he just bought at the sporting goods store and made up that whole story. It's just very strange. And now he's getting charged with a crime, man. Filing a false whatever.
Idiot.
They should just charge him for being stupid.
Total idiot.
What do you guys think about this whole Charlottesville and what happened in Spain? Have you guys been following any of that?
Spain, what do you mean? Because a lot of stuff goes on in Spain.
The attack in Spain last week?
I don't know.
Have you watched any of that?
No, not really.
You see some of these videos coming out of there, and they're claiming, in Spain specifically, that they had a lot of mannequins for people. Then they showed a video where this lady was laying down, and the people were walking, the camera crew was walking through this whole area, and they show a couple guys setting a baby down next to a lady.
So it's a staged event, basically.
Basically, they're saying it's a staged
event.
Okay,
I've heard that about the Charlottesville thing. I don't know. I haven't looked into it as far. What do you think? Did you think that was
Charlottesville?
Yeah,
I think it was real.
Okay.
I don't think it was staged.
Well, I would. The only thing I would say, and obviously
you have to break it down. What is real and what's staged?
Well, I obviously cannot prove.
Well, I think it was orchestrated.
Then we're on the same page.
I think I think it was last week we actually talked about it when you were gone. I think that the mayor, it all falls on the desk of the local officials. How do you find out that Antifa's coming to town when you've got a permitted protest of the exact opposite? And you don't separate them? I mean, they had 1,000 armed police between National Guard, state police, and everything on and more on standby nearby.
And they didn't do anything.
And they didn't do anything until the violence started. Come on.
Yeah, I do question some things surrounding it are a little bit strange. I mean, I don't want to minimize the death of that poor girl. I mean, I don't.
No. And you know what? And I even saw a video. I have not authenticated it, and I probably won't waste my time trying to. But I saw a video that was supposedly the unedited footage of that car speeding into that group of people.
Yeah.
And the video that everybody was seeing, it's supposedly the same video. I didn't compare them, okay? But supposedly it's the same exact video. And what it is that when the video that was out starts, it's just the car running into the people, okay? It starts with the car accelerating into the people. But if you back that video up 4 seconds and see what I was led to believe is the unedited video, it shows that car driving slowly through a crowd of people. And then people from the crowd start hitting the car with baseball bats, and that's when the car speeds up.
I saw that.
Now, I'm not condoning anything.
No.
That dude, whether it was accidental or not, needs to be tried and should have to, even if it was absolutely accidental manslaughter, that dude needs to pay for his crime. He still killed somebody, an innocent girl, regardless of what she believes. She was innocent. She didn't deserve to die.
Unless, of course, you could prove it was a total accident. There's no crime there.
Well, if you prove it's a total accident, but he still ran somebody over, and he was probably driving a car where he shouldn't have been.
That could be. Sure, of course. But there's some interesting things around it.
Come on. If you're the mayor of a town,
really
okay?
Happened,
I know.
You're the mayor of DiBiaseville, okay?
Which, of course, I would be.
And you find out that there is a Satanist rally. And they go and they get all the stuff. You fight them in court, but the judge upholds their right to assemble, free speech, First Amendment. So you got to let these 500 Satanists, protest in DiBiaseville at the town square. Okay. Then a couple days come in, and you find out that the Westboro Baptist Church is coming in to protest the protesters. That you just hear they're coming in. They don't have a permit. They have no reason. Are you telling me that you're not going to at least put up barricades and put the Westboro Baptist Church 1,000 yards away from the Satanists?
Of course.
I mean, it's just common sense, regardless of what side you're on.
Unless, of course,
whether the mayor was on the side of the Nazis or on the side of Antifa or whatever. But I mean, it's common sense.
It is.
Unless you want a situation to erupt.
That's right. Of course. And
so was it staged? No, but I think it was orchestrated. It could have been orchestrated.
There is just some things that I question, though. And again, I don't. We've all experienced tragedy. I don't want to. I'm just going to say it anyway. I find it just interesting that only days after this girl was killed, that the mother is able to compose herself and speak publicly without even shedding a tear.
I got you, but everybody.
Again, I'm not making a joke.
Everybody goes through that stuff differently.
I'm just making an
observation. But that's a good point.
But didn't she originally come out pro-Trump? Didn't she originally come out with a state? I thought she originally came out with a statement that was not anti-Trump.
But she wouldn't accept his phone calls, allegedly. She would refuse to take his phone calls, and then ends up at the MTV Music Awards.
You know who Scott Baio is?
Yes.
You seen his
That's
tweet on
the
that?
little bit of thing going on with his wife, and videos claiming it was a Sandy Hook type event, and then it turned into some crazy exchange.
I think if you look at this,
how did I miss this?
Yeah.
What you're missing,
straight up.
What he sent out was, and it was just a question. There's a picture of the Sandy Hook mother of the teacher that was killed, and the mother of the girl that the two side to side, and they look, besides the hair being gray this time, they look very, very similar. It'd be hard to tell apart. You know what I mean? And it means nothing, right? Because you get people look alike all the time in the picture.
Yeah, you could ask the question. It's fine.
But that's what they're bringing. And when you bring up this whole thing about the tears, that's you hate bringing up any of this stuff. But when you go back and you look at all these different videos, like Sandy Hook, and you don't see one parent with any tears.
No, it's very strange, dude.
I think if you were interviewing me after that happened to my kid, I couldn't hold it together.
It certainly wouldn't be on a podium, and then make a statement like, "Well, you thought you were silencing her, but you've just empowered her," and not even chin isn't even trembling.
Right.
No, I'm not I don't want to sound like I'm making an unfair judgment. Like you said, people all react different,
right.
and if it is all legit, which it probably is, then that's really horrible. I mean, I can imagine going through that, but there is some things about it that are a little bit curious.
We've all seen the crisis actor stuff. The lady who was a teacher at Sandy Hook and at the finish line in the Boston Marathon, and
right.
and in a third thing, I don't remember what the third thing was. Maybe Hooper can pipe up if he knows what. The crisis actor that was a teacher at
Boston?
Sandy Hook, Boston, bystander, and one other place. It was one of the videos you showed me.
Well, there are several crisis actors at Sandy Hook. I don't even know what to call them because they have different names depending on what news program you're watching. But one of them in particular that played a neighbor in that event, played a witness at the Boston bombing, and has also been on CNN as everything from a foreign diplomat to a foreign correspondent. One thing that's interesting is...
Didn't she have something to do with 9/11 as well?
Not 9/11.
Okay.
But this is where we need a television show, not a radio show. But her initials are always BS. Beatrice Smith.
Something.
Or sometimes she has an accent... It's creepy. It's just creepy.
That's exact women. You figured out who I was talking about. That's exact what I'm talking about. And I'm telling you, we watched a video side by side. There's no way it's a different person. I'm sorry. I mean, look, I'm reasonable and I can see where people are stretching things.
Sure.
There's no way it's not the same woman.
Yeah.
If you've seen
same with
Sandy
that dad.
Hook
Voice is the same
with the dad, right?
The man that was playing a father of one of the kids. You can also see him in a shot where he's playing one of the armed security police
as an FBI
officers.
SWAT guy.
Yeah.
Without any of the official, even FBI SWAT guys that were online got on and picked apart his uniform saying, how could people believe he's really enough? Yeah. And the mark on his face, it was clearly...
Yeah. Same guy. No question.
And there was a 9/11 guy.
I'm gonna call that one out just for a minute because you know how they throw all these things out there as false flag, to throw you off. They had another guy that they claimed was that guy. I know the guy you're talking about. He had the fatigues on. He was going around. He had guns, and he was one of the SWAT guys, right? Mark on his face. He thought he was one of the parents they put side by side. Then I saw another guy who claimed, "Oh, this is the actual guy who was that," and he was part of some FBI group and some other thing. Maybe they found a lookalike or something and brought him on. But the thing is about that one. They could claim that, okay, it wasn't really that guy, it was this guy, okay? But the thing was when you watched him walking around, the way he was carrying guns and stuff, you're saying, no, this guy is not a law enforcement because anyone that handles guns, they don't handle them that way.
Well, he was avoiding the camera, too.
Yeah.
Clearly knew where it was in some of those, videos from Sandy Hook. and he would basically, you could tell he was kind of conscious, like, kind of
he
turned his face a little bit, and I mean, he knew where the camera was. I mean, you know, there's a lot of that stuff with that. And I'm not saying this Charlottesville thing was exactly that, but there's just some things that, if anything, it definitely exposes some media bias for sure, because, I mean, if you're going to have every tragedy where, I'd say, the mother, the father, whatever, going to end up on the MTV Awards, you'd have to have one every single day, 3 times a day, forever. You couldn't possibly, so why this time? I mean, it's just, there's just some things about it that are curious, that's all. I mean...
What I find curious about that situation is they haven't talked about the 2 police that apparently died.
Yeah, there's a helicopter
crash. Why the helicopter
What about
crash?
their families?
Right.
What about them?
What about them? What about their families? You don't. This guy that they caught, you know, this town's all blocked off. He gets in this accident, leaves, and they find him later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that too.
That's odd. Okay, for him to be able to get away. And I haven't seen him arrested. I haven't seen him.
Now what? Right.
Where's he at now?
Where is he? That's right.
Yeah. Where's the microphone in his face? Let's hear what he has to say. You know what I mean?
It's I don't know, this whole resurgence of the neo-Nazi KKK type white supremacy movement is to me is laughable.
No,
I mean,
let me ask a question, because
it's laughable.
One of you guys may know more about this than I do, but they were talking about it, and they were saying, and I could have heard them wrong. I could have confused it. They were saying that there's only like 500 members, neo-Nazi members. Is that in the country or at that event?
I don't know. And I don't know that these guys publish their names to be counted, how they would even know that.
Right.
It's on the registry.
But the idea, at least to me, and again, I could maybe just be naive optimism on my part. I'll accept that. But I think most people would agree with what I'm about to say, is if there's any real fear in anyone's heart right now that somehow this neo-Nazi movement or the KKK, I mean, these guys can barely friggin' read, that somehow this is going to gain a foothold in this day and age, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
But this is absolute nonsense, dude. There's really nothing to worry about here. I mean, if that even came rising up in our town, and all of a sudden, you know, you had your neighbors getting attacked like they did back in the 40s and 50s, you really think we're all going to sit around and, well, it's not really our problem? Well, no, it is our problem. And I mean,
have you ever even really met a Nazi?
Years ago, they tried getting me involved in that. It was more the backwards redneck KKK crap. They tried sucking me into that.
Yeah,
but they all hang out, once. You know. Yeah. But they're around. But I mean, even then, I was 18 years old. I mean, and at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who ended up becoming my first wife, is Chinese. I'm like, yeah, guys, I think you're talking to the wrong dude, because I'm not buying your crap. I mean, it's just no, it's not for me, dude. No, it's based on complete nonsense, and I just don't. I think they're trying to make it out like this is some real popular movement, and everyone needs to be scared. And I'm just not buying it.
Well, but that's the crazy thing is it isn't even the neo-Nazis that are trying to use the press and the coverage to their advantage to look larger to recruit. It's the people. It's the people on the other side who are against them, who are trying to make them look huge, so they can scare the crap out of anybody who doesn't, so they can recruit to their side.
Right, I know and they're both hate groups. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they are.
They're both terrorist organizations.
Well, see, that's why I agree with what Trump said was the responsible thing, that there was bad on both sides.
It was all bad.
Yeah. So
that's right.
You can't pick a side, because what happens when you pick a side, you're granting that the other one is okay, and that's what happens now. They feel like they can go ahead.
But then you get the Bernie socialists coming out of the closet, and they're just, they support Antifa.
Well, that's the fear I have. I am personally not afraid of neo-Nazis or the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, especially not the KKK, dude. Come on. I mean, it doesn't get any more low rent than that. But, what I fear more than that is that you'll have some alliance between Antifa, BLM, the Bernie crowd, communists, the real communists, will all become one, and this will automatically link into groups like Muslim Brotherhood, even ISIS, because they all have very, very similar ideologies. If they all kind of join up, they'll become literally Satan's army light. I mean, and it'll be all violence all the time.
Well, dude, it's happening.
It is happening.
I mean,
and
I haven't seen the straight up link to ISIS and Islamic terror yet. But the Bernie socialists, they're totally behind Antifa. They're totally BLM is unimpeachable. You can't say a bad word about BLM. What are you talking about?
I know, and you could point out the positives there because there are some.
Absolutely,
but,
and I do differentiate BLM from Antifa.
Yeah, but when you have a mob of people,
right?
Then
and their goal is to disrupt.
It gets twisted then because and don't forget the Occupy crowd hasn't gone anywhere.
Right.
I'd say a lot of these are basically have been all linked to the Communist Party. By the way,
it is. It's a rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a rebrand, and they're getting more empowered now. And interestingly enough, I just learned this today that we have this group here called the Revolutionary Communist something Party, maybe.
Mm.
It's a tax-exempt nonprofit organization.
Awesome.
How do you join that?
To wage war against the U.S. and overthrow the government.
Awesome.
This is pretty cool, right? So, I don't know, man. That's my real fear. I'm more afraid of that than I am of any separatist movement.
It's already happening because the thing is they're vilifying the Trump people. I mean, we're already all labeled Nazis just because we won't denounce Donald Trump. Because we're trying to be rational about it, okay? Mm-hmm. So now we're all Nazis.
Apparently.
And they're going to, if you choose them to pick a side, they're so programmed and their thinking is so skewed that they're going to think it's better to side with Muslim extremists.
Yeah, or Antifa, anarchists.
Well, I mean, they're already behind BLM and Antifa, okay? So the next step is for them to get behind Muslim extremists, they're already with communists.
That's true.
And they're going to choose them over us because, I mean, we're responsible for slavery and,
of course,
and every bad thing that's ever happened in America.
Right, but Arabs never had slaves, so
no, they didn't.
Forget about historical.
Well, they
context.
treated them better.
Sure, they did.
They treated them better.
The Barbary slave trade's known for that.
Yeah, it is.
Civil rights.
Well, it's a moderate slave trade.
to your point, though, like you said, they already are linking up.
Oh, they are.
They're all connected. And you remember we talked about this a while ago about like the liberal, when they said it's a mental thing that some of these people have when they don't get their way, they start attacking each other.
Yeah, I wish they would come up with a drug that would cure
they're
it.
Actually, I just saw some videos and stuff that they're actually doing it. You've got
they'll cannibalize.
Because you mix BLM with Antifa and, they don't mix.
It doesn't mix.
They don't mix. They can say, okay, we're getting together for a common cause, but they don't mix at all.
It's not common.
Yeah, but
because
they're using that whole art.
And if you don't have some fight against, they start fighting against each other.
They will, because BLM are not anarchists.
Right.
They're just not.
Right.
They may be misguided on some things, but they're not anarchists.
I think they're missing the big picture, but I think they have a lot of valid points.
Of course, absolutely. I agree with that. But Antifa has zero valid points.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Because they're not about anything but anarchy, violence, this. And again, if you you can't even differ in your opinion,
right? Because
if you do, you're incorrectly labeled a fascist, which is interesting because they act like fascists. So it's very strange. But I don't know. I was just talking to my boss earlier about this whole, neo-Nazi KK thing. All of a sudden, these people are on TV again, doing interviews, and we got to listen to their just vitriol. I mean, since when? Why all of a sudden are these guys now coming out of the woodwork when they were pretty much literally just kind of like...
Well, because they're probably getting anonymous checks from Soros.
I'm guessing that's what I was thinking, too.
Because it pushes his agenda for these people to crawl out of the woodwork.
And, I mean, I can't prove it, but it makes sense to me.
There's
logical.
A lot of things.
Well, I mean, it's not because Trump's doing anything for him. He's not.
No, well, who's funding them? Somebody is.
Exactly.
And they're not self-funded.
It's not Trump.
Because they can barely read. So, and anyone who's intelligent that subscribes to that kind of ideology automatically isn't intelligent anymore.
The question is, Dave, and you, I know the answer you're gonna have. Do you have any doubt that any one of these groups are not infiltrated already by FBI or intelligence?
Oh, they always have been.
Oh, yeah.
Always have been, right? And the common thing that always happens is they seem to be the ones inciting things. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah.
They get them to do things, you know, and you go back to all these different, we'll call them false flag events, where they get these people to do things like they're, what is it, the Cernaya brothers? Is that how you pronounce their name from the Boston?
I don't remember.
Guys?
I won't justify them by pronouncing their name right.
Whatever their name is.
In that ballpark.
Whatever.
You know, if they said that they had, I mean, because you look at exactly what happened there, and the talk going around in the backstream was that the older one was in contact with handlers.
Yeah.
With FBI or whoever it was.
They interviewed him.
And, you know, they're putting them up to do these things. So, you know, maybe they did it. Maybe they built these bombs and they actually did it. But they knew they were going to do it. By they, I mean.
Right.
You know
people
what?
in charge
I wouldn't doubt
knew
that
that was going to happen.
It's interesting you bring that up because I remember watching a show, and it was one of these, not reality show, but it was one of the real life, like Cops, right? But it was the same thing where it was about drugs, I think, and it was here was this cop telling the story about the sting he was on, and that's what he did. He infiltrated a neo-Nazi group who was running guns, explosive, drugs, this whole thing. Now, this was years ago. So this is constantly going on. I mean, they infiltrate biker gangs, they infiltrate street gangs. This is what they do.
Yeah.
So they know who these people are. They got their names. They know where they live. They're probably pretend to be friends with them. I mean, this guy was inside for, I don't know, years to put this together. He was part of their ranks, actually. He moved his way up. I mean, he was a cop.
Deep undercover.
Yeah, deep. I mean, he was one of them as far as they knew. And I always thought that very curious, by the way. A little bit side note, but how do you just find a guy that just shows up out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's placed in the ranks?
Yeah.
It's very strange. I mean...
well, it's because, he gets vouched for by somebody else. They got something
Could
on,
be, yeah. I mean, it's very strange. But you're right. I mean, that's a good point. They are clearly infiltrated. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, that poses the question, why not?
Why are they not?
Right. If they're not important. I'll tell you that.
Well, I think the correct way to deal with people like this is to ignore them. Let them spout their crap.
Yeah, if this were real life,
just ignore them.
You would ignore them, and they would have gone to where they were supposed to go in this town, that park they were supposed to go to. They would have.
Yeah, I guarantee you, we would have heard. There would have been maybe a blurb because Trump's in the presidency. You know, if Obama was in the presidency, there wouldn't have even been a blurb.
Probably not. And it's the right way to handle it is to just ignore these guys. I mean,
but then again, I mean, they've already started with the well, you can't just ignore them. You can't just ignore them. They're not just going to go away.
We've ignored them since the 40s.
I have. My personal opinion is the Nazi thing, all that stuff's going away because it's not working.
It doesn't work, dude. And if they, again, I mean, I've said this before. If anyone is worried about, all of a sudden Nazis going to show up in your neighborhood and start, come on, really? People aren't going to stand for that, dude. I'm sorry. I just have too much confidence in people in general that, I mean, if I'm presented with something like that, I mean, you think I'm just going to be like, yeah, you guys are right. I'm going to take
Why did I think of that?
42 years of life experience and throw it out the window and realize that the whole time you guys were right.
Yep. What was I thinking?
Even though I have black hair and brown eyes and I'm only barely white. But I'm part of the master race. You're right.
Yeah.
It's insane. Totally insane. So I don't think we got to worry about this crap.
No, I think that's all. It's not working. It's going to go away. They're tried a bunch of different things. It's not working. So I think, and it's interesting. If you heard Feinstein, was it yesterday or the day before?
Diane Frankenfeinstein?
Yeah.
Oh,
I tried
basically
that too.
She come out against Antifa, right?
Really?
And she basically said Trump's going to be in office for at least his term, and he could end up being a good president. This is what she said.
She said that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
What?
Right.
Holy smokes!
Now that makes me worry.
Yeah,
it does.
Really
I mean,
worried.
did she maybe ingest some LSD or something?
Yeah. Was Timothy O'Leary around?
Yeah. Some shrooms, maybe?
No. And this is, we've talked about this before. You know, if you believe in all the things that we've talked about, the quotes that we go over.
Yeah.
You know, there is a thing known as the deep state, or there's powers behind the men in government. The president's not the top guy. However you want to say this, that if all this stuff is planned and then Trump was allowed to get in, really what's going on? Is he really a part of it or not? This is what I'm concerned about.
Well, it's interesting because I think I heard that quote. I didn't realize it was Feinstein that said it. She said if he changes, he could be a good president. That was her, right?
Yeah. Let me try to pull up
maybe
the actual quote.
Insinuating that he's maybe going to change.
Well, they got the thing going on in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right? They've got these things. If they can get him to follow along on some of these things, then...
They'll be like, he's actually a pretty good guy.
Well, if they can...
he might be okay.
He's not a Nazi. He's okay. Well, I'm just waiting to see if they push this tax reform through. They really need to do that. It would help all of us.
Yeah. The entire country.
I'm just not confident that it'll happen. I think
you think they're going to find a way to screw it up?
They will screw it up.
Yeah.
And it'll go to...
Because it only makes too much sense.
Well, it won't... People like you and I won't see jack.
Right.
So don't expect a raise anytime soon. It'll benefit Wall Street and the like, for sure. There'll be some corporate thing, which is okay. I'm good with that. It needs to happen. It's only half of it, right? They need to restructure taxes for everybody. We should be paying much less. And it would absolutely change the economy for the better. We would approach 5-6% growth easy. But I'm not so confident, dude. I mean, they're not even speaking the same language anymore.
I heard him talking about it today, and everything I heard, I'm like, wow, that just makes sense. That makes sense. I'm like, this is never going to happen.
It's not, because the fact that he didn't have any real specifics tells me there's not really a plan. It's all just pipe dream stuff. I mean, it's all just,
Who's that, Trump?
Yeah, he didn't really have specifics. He just kind of was throwing out, kind of like a vague kind of, we need to take the, tax from so many to 3 brackets, and we need to change the corporate tax rate to at least 15%, and we'll see if we can get that, blah, blah. It just was, he didn't lay out a plan. I mean, so it tells me that there isn't one. And if the guys that I think are writing it, they're Wall Street guys, we ain't going to see anything, dude. We're not going to get our tax bracket isn't going to drop 5%. No way. Right. We might get 2. They'll throw some peanuts to the monkeys, right? But that's about it. I just don't think it'll be Reagan-esque at all. So I'm not too excited about it, but we'll see. I'm watching.
Yeah, well, we got to remain hopeful, right? We got another choice.
Well, we did hit 3% growth GDP, which is good.
We did.
And that's the first time in a long time.
Very long time.
But if we could get to 5, 6, 7%, this would be a really different place.
It would be. Well, I'll tell you what. Here, I got an idea. Why don't we do this? So I'm dying to get into the quotes game, but we're up against a break. So let's do this. Let's break early.
Okay.
And then we will come back and do the last hour and 5 minutes with the quote game.
Awesome.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back. We're back from break. Now it's time to do the quote game. So we're going to spend about the next hour trying to tie up this edition of the quotes game, see if we can finish the book or if we play again next week.
We won't finish it today, but maybe we can do the quotes game in the last hour of the next couple shows, and we'll cut through the book, and I'll assemble it all as one big.
Okay.
Oh, I owe you a quote. I have it, by the way.
Yeah, you guys all owe me quotes.
Oh, no one gave you one yet?
No.
I'll be the first.
Mine's half written.
I'll send it to you. It's actually pretty simple.
Well, we've got time. All right, should we just jump in?
Jump in, man. Do it.
Bring
it. I'm not sure exactly where we left off. I think we were on chapter 19 or 20, hints about the enemy. Let's start in chapter 20, which is called The Money Changers. And this is where this is the seat of power on the planet. If you have the ability to create money out of thin air and you control that, you control the world. And there are, I think you'll see this in some of the quotes if we get to them today, that such a group does exist, and they do have a hidden agenda, which has popped out in history hundreds, if not thousands of times. It's just never covered by the mainstream media. So here's the quote. Let's get started. We ready?
Okay. Are you going to play this week, Chris? No. Okay, Chris is out. So.
All right, Tony,
Chris.
someone,
He's leaving with
someone
a tie.
keep score here with some paper. This is for a beer at the bar.
I have to use a smartphone. Oh, you got paper? Tony's prepared.
All right, well, he pulls that out. I'll read the first quote. Here it is. Banking was conceived in iniquity and was born in sin. The bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them the power to create money, and with the flick of the pen, they will create enough deposits to buy it back again. However, take away from them the power to create money, and all the great fortunes, like mine, will disappear, and they ought to disappear, for this would be a happier and better world to live in. But if you wish to remain the slaves of bankers and pay the cost of your own slavery, let them continue to create money. This was either said by Henry Ford, who we all know, Reginald McKenna, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's close. It's like the equivalent of the U.S. Treasury, but for England. Joseph Kennedy, the father of John F. Kennedy, or President Woodrow Wilson.
You didn't give a year, did you?
I did not give the year.
Good choices.
Yeah, who we started?
I don't think it's right, but I'm going to say Ford because he said some very similar things.
Okay.
I like it.
But
go ahead.
But you know what? Who I actually think it is. Can I change?
Sure.
Sure,
I'm gonna go
Cat.
with Kennedy.
Why? Kennedy? All right.
Kennedy.
Okay.
Really?
So he's going Kennedy. Howard?
Kennedy.
I'm going to go with the English guy.
Oh, you know what?
It wasn't any of those four.
It actually was not any of those four.
So we all lose.
It's rigged.
Because if you'd know, you'd be like, no, it wasn't any of them. It's exposed us all as guessers.
That was my screw up. So let me just give the answer on this one. Frankly, it could have been any of them. But it was actually Sir Josiah or Joseph Stamp. He was the director of the Bank of England, and he said this in 1940. This was from an informal talk he gave at the University of Texas. Actually, the talk was in the 1920s, but it did not appear in print until 1940.
So I was right.
That English dude?
Yeah,
I didn't give a name. I said the English dude.
He did say that English
Give
dude.
Give
half
yourself
a point.
0.5. That could be the tiebreaker.
That's okay. I'm not really into multiple choice welfare, but I'll take it.
Okay. Next quote. We ready?
Yep.
This little coterie of powerful international bankers virtually run the United States government for their own selfish purposes. This was either John F. Hyland, the mayor of New York City, Woodrow Wilson, president, Barry Goldwater, vice president, or senator, or Larry McDonald, senator, or congressman, who was killed in flight KAL 007 over the Soviet Union, a plane that was shot down. This little coterie of powerful international bankers virtually run the United States government for their own selfish purposes. Hyland, Wilson, Goldwater, or McDonald? Dave, you start.
McDonald.
I'm going to go with McDonald also.
I'm going to go with McDonald as
He
well.
baited us.
Goldwater.
It was actually John F. Hyland. He said this in 1922 in Chicago. He continues, quote, "They practically control both parties, write political platforms, make cat's paws of party leaders, use the leading men of private organizations, and resort to every device to place in nomination for high public office only such candidates as will be amenable to the dictates of corrupt big business."
1920s, you said that?
1922, John F. Hyland.
It hasn't changed much, has it?
No, you can follow.
It hasn't changed much.
If this book, in one sense, will be like a history book. You literally see the footprint of evil going back thousands of years. It's the same type of person saying the same type of thing and you can find it in every decade except for during the Dark Ages, because
it was dark. Yeah.
Nothing came out of the Dark Ages. Yeah. All right, we ready to move on?
Yes.
Next quote. I'm afraid that the ordinary citizen will not like to be told that the banks can and do create money, and they who control the credit of a nation direct the policy of the government and hold in the hollow of their hands the destiny of the people. This was either Henry Ford, Reginald McKenna, Joseph Kennedy, or Woodrow Wilson.
Howard. Henry Ford.
I'll go with Wilson.
McKenna. None of them.
No. Reginald McKenna, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Chairman of the Midland Bank Limited. He said this in 1924, and he was addressing the stockholders of the bank when he made that quote, which was on the record. That is, we might not recognize the name here, but he's as recognizable as like Ben Bernanke or Alan Greenspan might be to us. He's known to everybody, and he's in the inner circles of power. That was in 1924. Did anyone get a point on that one?
Tony.
All right, Tony, you up 1 to 0.5?
1 to 0.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming about half a point.
Next quote.
Barn burner.
Yeah.
You are a den of vipers. I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out. If the people only understood the rank and justice of our money and banking system, there would be a revolution before morning. This was either Andrew Jackson, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, or Abraham Lincoln.
What?
Yeah, I know this one.
Well, I know part of that quote was from Henry Ford because he said pretty much the same thing.
Part of it's kind of derived from the Bible.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
The Den of Vipers is a biblical reference.
So who are the...
You are a den of vipers. I intend to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out. If the people only understood that rank and justice of our money and banking system, there would be a revolution before morning. And it was either President Andrew Jackson, President Thomas Jefferson, President Abraham Lincoln, or Alexander Hamilton, the founder of essentially America's banking system, original banking system.
Who's first?
Tony.
Oh. I was going to go with first one.
5 seconds.
Yeah, we need a
pick this up. There's only 4 choices here. You're killing us with this dead air time.
Yeah,
say a name.
We need
if
a
you're
time
just guessing.
All right, Hamilton.
Howard.
Jefferson.
I say Andrew Jackson.
Jackson it is.
I knew I read that before. Andrew Jackson,
considered the founder of the Democratic Party, served as president from 1829 to 1837, adding to an already impressive career as vice president, senator, congressman, and military general. He was not afraid to face off against the central bankers who were probably under satanic influence back then, too. He said, "Gentlemen, I too have been a close observer of the doings of the Bank of the United States. I've had men watching you for a long time and am convinced that you have used the funds of the bank to speculate in the breadstuffs of the country," that is, speculating on stock. "When you won, you divided the profits amongst you, and when you lost, you charged it to the bank." Now, that's still going on today.
It's actually normalized.
If you think about it, when you really understand, and if you ever seen the movie The Big Short,
yeah,
I've never seen that. I don't think
you should watch it. It's a true story, insider's viewpoint of some guys that realized the scam that was the housing bubble, the real estate investment going on up through 2008. They saw that this was going to tank because it was built on 2 groups verifying each other, but there was no assets or nowhere near the assets involved, which both these groups claimed. Hence, they shorted the market, made a killing, but they actually had it goes into the moral problems they had, these guys, because they realized that the economy of the world was in danger of completely collapsing. And how was it saved? An emergency presidential, and the president's dumb about finance. Most presidents are. They're just better people. They're not economists by nature. Surrounded by a room of these very bankers saying, you need to get us, which turned out to be a few $1 trillion, I believe, in a bailout. And to reflect who they really are inside, I mean, they used that bailout money to throw lavish parties within a month of getting that money.
Yeah.
AIG was one company that was skewered for that. So their plan doesn't work. So when they lost on that deal, who paid for it? The American public did, through our labor. And now more of our tax dollars go to these guys. That when people say we're slaves, you don't feel like a slave because I have freedom. I can do whatever I want. I just need to go to my job and make enough money to pay my bills. Understand this, though. The assets these guys have, what they control now, we gave this example before, is they, today, receive all of the tax dollars of the American public. And what are those tax dollars based on? And we don't even make enough to cover the interest payments. We've been in this system since 1913. We had last week a quote, I can't remember who made it, but it was a recent congressman or senator, Bob Kerrey is who said it, talking about how we've only got another decade or so before every penny we pay in income tax simply pays the interest on the money these people created out of thin air. They never put anything into this country other than get a law passed in 1913. And so when you understand that they get treasury bills in exchange for the cash they provide the U.S. Treasury, those treasury bills are based on the labor of Americans.
Right.
And because they now, in a sense, get all the proceeds from all the labor, you have this situation where we are slaves to that. We're a slave to our job. I mean, who can quit their job and keep living?
Right. Or
what happens to you if you don't have a job?
Yeah. Or if you decide that your income tax rate is unfair, so you're no longer going to pay it, what happens to you?
Exactly.
I mean, tax evasion, you get locked up forever, man.
Well, what's interesting is coming up is the debt ceiling.
Yeah, they'll raise it. They don't care.
Well, the debt ceiling is where we get into that conversation every time, and these senators and congressmen that are so late to the game believe that we can't increase the debt. Well, I'll tell you one thing: there's no way to go on without increasing.
They'll increase it, of course,
and it's already so far gone. We'll never catch up.
It's impossible
by design,
right?
Ever, never. So increasing the debt ceiling is irrelevant. All it does is provide the momentary cash needed to cover the government's bills for this short period of time. These are not long-term solutions. And eventually we'll get to the point where the debt ceiling would have to be increased every day. Or
just not have a ceiling.
Or exactly.
Right, just don't even count anymore.
You have to have people willing to credit you, though.
What do you mean?
You have to have, you can raise a debt ceiling, but if people don't want to loan you the money, then what do you do?
Well, the debt ceiling is raised by our government, which gives the Treasury the authority to go and ask for more money from the central banks or the Federal Reserve. We're already in the area where it doesn't matter if we ask for more money. Everything we have goes to them first before it goes to our government. So in terms of the credit that it exists is more treasury bills assigned to these owned by these central bankers. That's the credit, which just means more U.S. labor. It's already that battle has already been won. We just haven't seen the system collapse yet. But when they're ready, when their other operations come to fruition, they will collapse the economy. That is their plan. Enough insiders have come out about it, saying that is. And I could never understand why the richest people on earth would want to destroy the economy. That is what their lifestyle is based on. And it's because they're trying to get the one thing they don't have yet. And Dave, I think these were your words. They are going for our souls. They may not see that themselves in the big picture, but when you understand what the overarching goal is, they're going to crash that system, because now we're going to be absolutely dependent on the government to save us. And that is when this character we call the Antichrist is going to be ushered in, and the new monetary system, whether it's a tattoo or whatever the mark is, an injection or who knows, you won't be able to buy or sell. Mm-hmm. That is when they will introduce that system. And we're going to love it, because after they purposely crash the financial system, imagine what's going to happen in this country in the 6 months afterward.
It's going to be chaos.
The vast majority of people are going to die.
Yeah.
They will not be able to survive without the help of the government. We do not know how to live off the land anymore. All we know how to do are to press buttons on a telephone. And you take that phone away and try to adjust to life even without just a phone.
Yeah, like a real life.
Now imagine no heat, no electricity,
no food,
no communication.
Right.
Not a single luxury.
Right, and amidst this chaos, keep your salvation intact.
That will be the problem.
Right.
And for the people living through that period, and I think people listening now, and I think even people at this time, we're going to live through that. At the rate people are waking up, they don't have 30 more years. In fact, the little X that was made on Tony's, which Tony showed, that the X of this coming,
the coming eclipse.
Yeah, the other eclipse.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's a sign from the chief upstairs.
It could
saying,
be.
You got 7 years now, and he operates on sevens. All right, moving on. Next quote. We ready?
Ready.
Do it.
After years of independent study and investigation of economic problems, I was satisfied that the evil underlying all our troubles was an absolutely false money system. This was either John F. Hyland, Daniel T. Cushing. Do you guys know who he is?
No clue.
I'm sorry, Thomas Cushing Daniel. He's an American economist, financial writer, banking expositor. Like he exposed the operations of the banks. He was popular in the early 1900s. He may not be so popular today, but he's well regarded in economic circles. So your choices are Hyland, Cushing, G. Edward Griffith, who wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island, which was the clandestine meeting in which the Federal Reserve Act was dreamt up, and from there it was passed. Or I said it. Hyland, Cushing, Edward Griffin, or Hooper.
Can we get the quote again?
After years of independent study and investigation of economic problems, I was satisfied that the evil underlying all our troubles was an absolutely false money system.
Hooper.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hooper on that one, too.
This was said in 1914.
It wasn't Hooper.
Hooper's grandfather.
Yeah.
Thomas Cushing Daniel. Again, linking up all of the decades throughout history of the people in the know have understood the real problem in our country. We can talk about BLM and Antifa and the Symbian Liberation Army and all these other revolutionary... All of our problems stem from the fact that we don't print our own money. Plain and simple. I totally agree with him.
Well, we should each get a 0.5 because Hooper did actually say it.
He could.
That's not my quote.
He could have said it.
You said it just a minute ago twice.
Technically, you did say it.
Okay, next quote. This is in a chapter 21 called Secret Societies Like Freemasonry. The quote is this. Do you realize sufficiently what it means to rule in a secret society? Not only over the lesser or more important of the populace, but over the best of men, over men of all ranks, nations, and religions, to rule without external force, to unite them indissolubly, to breathe one spirit and soul into them, men distributed all over parts of the world. Do you realize sufficiently what it means to rule in a secret society? This was either Aleister Crowley, Adam Weishaupt, J.P. Morgan, or Manly P. Hall. And if there's anyone whose name you don't recognize, ask me about him and I'll tell you.
I don't know the Hall. Manly P.
Manly P. Hall.
He's a rapper?
No, he wrote... he was in the category of the Annie Besant's and Helena Blavatsky's. He wrote a lot about Lucifer, secret societies, the coming one world government, the New World Order. And he did it, I believe it was in the 40s, 50s.
Who's first?
Howard.
I'll go Weishaupt.
Yeah, me too. Weishaupt.
Hall.
It was Adam Weishaupt, 1787.
I don't know why I keep changing.
The Illuminati guy. Sort of.
He was the founder of the Illuminati. Now, he did not begin Satan's plan. He simply was the guy that gave them their new name for modern day, which in this case stretches from 1787 through right now, where the name Illuminati was attached to this group of money controllers. That is, and they operated specifically through their biggest recruiting vehicle are secret societies. And inside of those secret societies, there are layers of secrets. So a 24th degreed member does not know what a 25th degreed member knows, and so forth and so on. And they keep their secrets compartmentalized within the secret societies. They do. Our military works the same way. You have people working together that take these secret oaths, and that oath to quote unquote our government really is an oath, I hate to say it, to keep the secrets of the devil from coming out at the end of the day. And you even have situations, I've got one now where I've got a good friend who's an FBI agent married to a federal prosecutor. And they used to almost brag about the fact that there were secrets that they couldn't even tell themselves. Like this oath, this promise that you think is for your government supersedes that of a marriage.
Yeah.
Think about that. And we have trouble understanding how all of these events get pulled off with that level of secrecy. And no one sees the big picture. You know, my friend at the FBI does not see the bigger picture that the biggest drug dealer in the land is the Central Intelligence Agency, which we're going to get into in 1 second. And that same type of compartmentalization operates, it works very well also in secret societies. And you got to earn your way to be given those secrets. But by the time you do, they now know that you're willing to do anything.
Yeah.
To maintain.
Well, that's the whole, it's a need-to-know basis, right? And you don't need to know.
Okay. Next quote. Are we ready?
Ready.
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to give you a person. For this quote, I want you to tell me if this was said in the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, or 2000s. The quote is this. In short, I have found that the cover of a Mason lodge had been employed in every country for venting and propagating sentiments in religion and politics that could not have circulated in public without exposing the author to great danger. I found that this impunity had gradually encouraged men of licentious principles to become more bold and to teach doctrines subversive of all our notions of morality, of all our confidence in the moral government of the universe, of all our hopes of improvement in a future state of existence, and of all satisfaction and contentment with our present life, so long as we live in a state of civil subordination. I've been able to trace these attempts made through a course of 50 years. I have observed these doctrines gradually diffusing. Actually, let's leave it there. I'll finish the quote later. That quote, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, or 2000s. In short, I have found that the cover of a Mason lodge had been employed in every country for venting and propagating sentiments about religion and politics that no one would dare talk about openly.
I say 1800s.
I'll go 17s.
1800s.
It was 1793.
Oh.
A man named John Robeson, in a book called Proofs of a Conspiracy Against All the Religions and Governments of Europe, carried out in the secret meetings of Freemasons, Illuminati, and reading societies. The book came out in 1797.
Is this a book that you can get your hands on and read?
Yeah. You can. It's also...
That came out in 1797?
Yeah.
This is what I love about the internet.
Good
you now
God.
have access to every library in the history in the history of the world, or that exists anywhere on the planet. So whereas before, if I had to go to my local library, I had access to the books they had in that library. But you can go look at digitally archived versions of everything with a few taps by your fingers. And this is actually, these are photographs of the books, photographs of each page. These are not recreated, and some are digitized, but you can actually see the old cover and the old writing and the...
Yeah, because if you didn't actually know that book existed by title, without the internet you could never locate it, because you can't just do like a vague search, right? So that's incredible.
What's the rest of the...
well, Robeson, he was a professor of philosophy at the University of Edinburgh as of 1773. He was a Mason. He was invited to join the Illuminati, and after investigating the order, the Freemasonic order, Robeson declined the invitation and instead published a book in 1793 talking about what he'd learned from the inside. And here's just another link in a multi-hundred-year chain of insiders saying, look, these guys plan to overthrow the whole world and do as they will. And that plan has been in place, well, we see here, as at least as early as 1793. He goes on to say, I have observed these doctrines gradually diffusing and mixing with all the different systems of Freemasonry, till at last an association has been formed for the express purpose of rooting out all the religious establishments and overturning all the existing governments of Europe. Now remember, the United States at this point is only 10 years old.
Yeah, barely.
He's not... Right now, Europe's the seat of power in the world. I've seen this association exerting itself zealously and systematically till it has become almost irresistible. And I've seen that the most active leaders in the French Revolution were members of this association and conducted their first movements according to its principles and by means of its instructions and assistance, formally requested and obtained. And lastly, I have seen that this association still exists, still works in secret. The association of which I have been speaking is the Order of Illuminati, abolished in 1786, my words, supposedly, by the Elector of Bavaria, but revived immediately after under another name and in a different form all over Germany. It was again detected and seemingly broken up, but it had by this time taken so deep root that it still subsists without being detected and is spread into all countries of Europe. How many lodges are there in the United States?
They're in every town.
50, 60,000?
They're in every city. Talking about Masonic lodges?
Yeah.
They got them in the Philippines. They're everywhere.
It's planet-wide.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, statistically, there are probably... I'd have to do some math, but in my small hometown of 10,000 people, there's probably a dozen guys that are involved in this that are high enough where they're actually part of the machine.
Like wear the ring and stuff?
That could easily coordinate.
Yeah.
Maybe even unbeknownst to them, to do anything, to coordinate, to smear a man's reputation, or to get a particular vote passed, or to sway a local community, which then would be coordinated with other Freemasons in all other cities. Again, unbeknownst to themselves, that they are part of a much bigger cog. It's one of the ways they operate. And breaking down how they operate, I think, is important, because when you first hear all these things, your first inclination is, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
How do they get so many people to pull off Sandy Hook? How do they get so many people to pull off 9/11? They do it the same way that they operate inside of our government, inside of our military, inside of secret societies, and even in cults. That is, there's only a very, very small percentage at the top that know the whole picture, and their souls are bought and have been sold. And everyone else goes along with the program because they observe all the higher-ups. They're wealthy, they're popular, they have pretty wives and big houses, and we were trained from a young age to want those things. And so these guys will follow the program, and sadly, most people that reach the point where you're finally asked to do that thing where you can't do it anymore. We gave an example of an 8th or 9th degree where you're supposed to spit on the cross of Jesus Christ to advance a degree. For some, that's the moment where they just can't go any further. For others, it's when they're told to literally, I know this sounds ridiculous, but this is how they operate. I mean, it gets to the point where they're either asked to kill someone or have homosexual sex with another member to prove that they are willing to do anything. And it's sad how few men come out of there and then have the courage to talk about it. But there have been hundreds throughout history, all saying the same thing. They're not crazy. They're saying that two people cannot see a mirage. Ready to move on?
Ready.
Can I bring one thing up?
Sure.
You were talking about an old book. Did you guys see the Adventures of Baron Trump book?
No.
What?
There's a book out written years and years ago. The Adventures of Baron Trump.
I actually did see something about that.
And the author has two books. One was The Adventures of Baron Trump. The other was The Last President.
Yeah. But actually, they're kind of old.
Very old.
Books. Yeah.
Very old.
Yeah.
Look those up. Same thing. I saw them online, with the pictures.
Speaking of which, so my sister was in town this week, and I heard you guys talking about outside about, she reads current events. And this is one reason I like to stay out of current events, because it's a lot of noise. But she was talking about how people were miffed at the outfit that the First Lady wore.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. So she asked if I'd seen that video. And I said no. And then I asked her, I go, have you ever seen the video of Melania Trump? It's about 15 years old, where she's a young model, and it's about a 3-minute video. And she plays the First Lady of the United States in this video. She gets off the airplane, she greets people. And what I found interesting is this. As that video is being made about Melania Trump, and you can go just YouTube it online, Melania Trump, predictive programming, First Lady. It'll pop up. As that video's coming out, here in the United States, at the exact same time, on the Simpsons show, you've got Donald Trump being predicted as the President of the United States. Just how odd.
Yeah, that is a little odd.
Doesn't mean anything. It could be a coincidence, but
sure. Could be.
I just thought that's
or it could
how
not
weird.
Be.
Two people that are actually now they were in completely different lines of work.
Right.
They were in business and in modeling. They both put out something, or something's put out about them saying these two people will be the President and First Lady of our nation, and it happened.
Well, keep in mind, they weren't married at the time either.
Right.
So they didn't even have that connection.
They weren't married, right?
Not
at the time. I think it was Marla Maples back then.
I think you're right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, who can keep track?
Okay.
It's freaky.
I'm going to read 4 quotes about secret societies. You have to tell me which one is false.
Yeah, okay.
Number 1. This would have been said by Kurt Barker, who grew up in an Illuminati family, was exposed to ritual abuse, mind control, which they all go through when they're young. First quote is, "The leaders of Luciferian secret societies tend to deceive even their own followers." Second quote. This one would be by Albert Pike. "Masonry, like all religions and all the mysteries," and when they say the mysteries, these are the mystery religions, the mystery schools. This is what came from Babylon. "Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages or the elect." Meaning, even inside of Freemasonry, these things are kept secret from the vast majority of Freemasons, except for the ones at the top. Except the adepts and sages or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth which it calls light, and to draw them away from it. Okay, so that was the second quote by Albert Pike. So far we have one by Kurt Barker, an Illuminati insider, Albert Pike, general in the Confederate Army in the 1870s, and he's got a statue in Washington, D.C. today. The third quote would be by a Reverend Charles Grandison, C.G., better known as C.G. Finney, famous American minister in the late 1800s. His quote was simply, "Obey Masonic law and live." Third quote, which would be from a man named Roger Morneau, who we talked about last week, who was in a society, who came out, did a tell-all interview in the 1990s. His quote was, "But when you get into a secret society of spirit worshippers, and especially when you're invited there by the direction of the higher-ups in the spirit world, you never get out of there alive." Those are the four quotes. Which one's false?
Albert Pike.
Okay, Howard says the Albert Pike one.
I'll go with the first guy. I forget his name. The first one.
Kurt Barker.
Okay.
So when you say they're wrong, they're false quotes, or
what I'm saying is 3 of these are true and 1 is not. You're trying to identify the one that's made up.
I'm going to go with Barker as well.
Howard?
He went with Pike.
Oh, you said Pike? You're all wrong. Because they're actually all true.
Aw, bummer.
Sorry. I make the rules up as I go.
That's okay. I can,
Okay.
That's crap.
Moving on to chapter 22. These are quotes about the Central Intelligence Agency.
Ooh.
The central bank is where the blood comes from. That's where the money comes from. The CIA is like one arm and a very powerful limb of these. And again, the same way secrets work in secret societies, they work in our intelligence communities. Even if you work with someone, you don't share secrets with your coworker, and that could even be your partner at the FBI or CIA for decades. Secrets are still kept between those guys, or at least they're supposed to be. So we're going to be, the next few quotes are going to be about our intelligence agencies. Okay, here's the first one. Are we ready?
Ready.
Mm-hmm.
The CIA is the biggest drug dealer in America and has been for years, starting back in the 1960s. This was either former CIA agent Gene Chip Tatum, FBI, the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, who died in 1972, Nancy Reagan, or Ted Gunderson, who was the FBI chief of Los Angeles with 700 agents underneath him. The CIA is the biggest drug dealer in America and has been for years, starting back in the 1960s.
Who's first?
Your first, Dave.
Tatum?
I'm going to go with Gunderson.
Tatum.
It was Ted Gunderson.
Oh.
Gunderson, who at one point oversaw 700 FBI agents, left the agency in 1979. And by the way, he was being considered for the head of the FBI. He was on the short list of nominees. And he began speaking out about the organization of the Illuminati and how they had infiltrated the FBI, among other government agencies. And he stumbled onto them because he was in charge of interstate crimes, murders, which now becomes a federal crime, not a state crime. And he was observing that all of these crimes were littered. The majority of murders, from his point of view, are committed in a satanic fashion, and the murder scenes have satanic markings all over them. The general public never hears about that. Policemen are trained, according to Russ Dizdar, to never, quote-unquote, scare the public by talking about those things. Again, this is one of the ways the secret is kept. And even the Charles Manson murders of the LoBiancas and the
Tates.
People don't realize this either. That was absolutely a satanic ritual crime. And in fact, her baby...
Yeah, the whole thing.
What really happened there is 10 times more disgusting than what you think. And, of course, there are links to mind control programs that Charles Manson was a part of, as was Jim Jones of Jonestown at the exact same time. CIA mind control experiments. And if you're not certain about that, explain to me how one of Manson's followers named Squeaky Fromm, who was on trial with him, I believe she was on trial, but it certainly was known as one of his followers and involved in these murders, just a few years later got close enough to President Gerald Ford to shoot him at point-blank range and had her gun jam. She would have assassinated the president had her gun worked. I think in a lot of ways that lends it's a codicil of truth to the fact that she's probably answering to handlers at something. I don't think that's just plain. Just to say something that someone is just crazy is too dismissive. How the heck did that happen?
Yeah.
And how did someone like that get past the Secret Service right into... I mean, what do you think these guys do all day?
Was it Tate that was married to Roman Polanski?
Sharon Tate, married to Roman Polanski, who got scared out of his mind and left the country. And if he came back, it was only very recently, but he never returned.
I don't think he can come back.
Yeah, he's not supposed to.
They were working on it, but
he's wanted for pedophilia, dude.
Pedophilia. Right.
So.
Oh, and there again, once again, it's the same type of crimes from the same families and the same MO. And I'm sure, he was a famous, successful director. And very possibly he was one of those guys that got to that position because he did some of those abominable things that there is video in some vault somewhere kept by the powers that be, so that if you ever do step out of line, you know what charges are coming.
Remember that
away.
party? Yeah, we got it on tape.
Exactly. Next quote. It is the function of the CIA to keep the world unstable and to propagandize and teach the American people to hate. So we will let the establishment spend any amount of money on arms. Was this said by someone that was inside the CIA or outside the CIA?
Repeat the quote.
It is the function of the CIA to keep the world unstable and to propagandize and teach the American people to hate. So we will let the establishment spend any amount of money on arms.
I'm going to go the inside.
Inside.
Yeah, I got to say the same thing.
It was insider John Stockwell. He was an American intelligence officer. He became a CIA whistleblower, but he saw what he had been tasked to do with putting out false news articles in Vietnam and related to the Vietnam War, where he literally had a team of people that they just made stories up out of the blue to change the sentiment of a local population.
Yeah.
He then realized that was happening also in the United States, and then he also realized that, what we called the advisors that we sent to Vietnam. When Kennedy entered office, there were about 400 CIA, quote, CIA advisors. By the time Johnson got to office, there were 16,000. Now, this was who was running the war in Vietnam. Think about this agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, with enough manpower to devote 16,000 boots on the ground in Southeast Asia back in the late 60s.
In a place like Vietnam.
Think about that.
16,000.
And there was much more going on in Vietnam. We were testing lots of crazy stuff. This was not just to the American people. It was a war of communism versus capitalism. But there was it was a wonderful place to do a lot of experiments way away from the public's eye. And we've heard of some of those, like Agent Orange. They've been hinted at in movies like Jacob's Ladder.
Right.
A lot of strange things happened in that war. And a lot of soldiers were never heard from again, ever.
Right.
Some believed. There's a lot more where I don't want to get too sidetracked, but there's a lot of worth looking into. Okay, next quote. Again, you're going to just be telling me if this is from the outside the CIA or inside. The CIA counts on the fact that the more bizarre and perverted they act, the safer they are, because the average Joe cannot even fathom the depths of evil that this agency perpetrates. One by one, the dots get connected. The same names keep popping up, and they are linked with the same activities over and over and over again until the pattern becomes so clear and undeniable. The circumstantial evidence becomes so overwhelming, and the picture emerges that is so frightening that it is hard to believe that it is true. The picture that has emerged is that indeed the major institutions of the United States of America, the CIA, the FBI, and many of our governmental and media institutions are involved in child sexual slavery and ritualistic abuse. The same names keep surfacing in relation to the same subjects over and over again. The CIA, child sexual abuse, the Catholic Church, George Bush Sr., the secret societies of the Skull and Bones, the Freemasons, the Knights of Malta, and others, and on and on and on. If you think this sounds like some, quote, loony conspiracy theory, congratulations. That's exactly how they programmed you to think. You have been brainwashed. Your mind has been successfully obliterated. Inside the CIA or from outside?
Why are you guys looking at me?
Because you're first?
No, I'm first.
Yeah.
Inside.
I say outside.
I'm going to go outside.
This was outside. A man named Harry Stuckey, artist. Interesting story that's worth looking into. He spent a few years in hiding after the attacks of 9/11 as a result of threats from inside of our government and agents of the Bush family. He was one of the first journalists with the courage to delve deeply into the alleged crimes of the Bush family, including their involvement in 9/11 and the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan in 1981. He set up a media organization under his pen name Vox, V-O-X, and today runs Vox News or Vox Media.
Oh.
His assessment in the lines quoted here resonate as highly accurate for anyone doing their own research into these matters. He said this in 2002, right on the heels of the 9/11 attacks. Okay.
Vox is kind of like...
I'm familiar with it.
I've
heard seen it around.
Yeah, I've seen it around too.
But I think that they're kind of called out as being, I don't know, discredited or...
Of course. Yeah. I'm sure they are.
I'm going to have to look into that now.
Yeah.
Is this a true quote or a false quote? We need to close the 1,000 overseas bases whose real function is to facilitate the smuggling of drugs, cash, gold, guns, and small children for the elite by CIA using conscripted military aircraft, and we need to bring our army home. Was this said by someone in the CIA, in the military, or by a journalist?
I'm going to go with the military.
My turn? I'm going to say a journalist.
Military.
Here's another insider from the Central Intelligence Agency. His name is Robert David Steele. He was involved in CIA clandestine operations.
Military.
He was also in the Marine Corps. He was actually, right this year, was recommended for a Nobel Peace Prize. He gives lots of speeches on what the CIA really does and how to combat them.
For a Nobel Peace Prize, talking stuff like that? Interesting.
It's interesting about that. I just heard about him being a disinformation agent.
What a shock!
He's been around. He said something that I've heard that kind of makes sense, and he says some other things that you look at and go, "Oh, I don't know about that."
There are two names that, if you know his name, I'm going to only throw these out because you knew him, who, as sure as I can be, and it's not 100%, but it's 99.9%, if you've ever come across the name Stu Webb or Barbara Hartwell,
okay,
they are absolutely disinformation agents still working for the CIA, even though they pretend to expose the CIA. Let's do at least one more. We could probably do a couple. This will be the last one on the CIA. We have 3 minutes. Here's the quote. I think that the CIA in its creation was a mistake. And if I'd known what was going to happen... should have read the whole quote. And if I'd known what was going to happen, I never would have done it. But it got out of hand. Now, as nearly as I can make out, those fellows in the CIA don't just report on wars and the like. They go out and make their own, and there is nobody to keep track of what they are up to. They spend billions of dollars on stirring up trouble so they will have something to report on. It's become a government all its own and all secret. They just don't have to report to anybody. Who said that?
Oh, that's an interesting quote.
It was either Eisenhower, Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, Truman, or Kennedy, John F.
Who? Time frame. Eisenhower? So I go with.
Go ahead, Howard.
Kennedy.
I'll go with Eisenhower also. I wasn't going to pick Kennedy, but...
It was actually the president at the time that the CIA was formed, which was Harry S. Truman.
My first guess.
And it's not that the CIA was formed from scratch. They took the old American intelligence agency called the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, I believe.
Yeah.
They used that agency for Project Paperclip, which brought in the entire, not the entire, because half went to Russia, brought in half of the Nazi intelligence apparatus, and that is who became our Central Intelligence Agency. These known murderers, eugenicists.
It's the SS, right?
They brought in, well, the SS, the Gestapo.
Oh,
they brought in all
scientists.
Scientists. I mean, Werner von Braun takes his V1 and V2 rocket programs, which the man worked on things that killed literally innocent civilians. These bombs had no chance of winning the war. They just would fly over London, and the engine would cut off.
Yeah.
And it was the silence that was so fearful, because everyone would hear it coming, and then you stand outside of your house waiting for this massive bomb to drop on you. And it was going to hit somewhere, you just didn't know. And a lot of people, I mean, their worst nightmares came true when they saw this thing falling near their neighborhood. It was the first intercontinental ballistic missile. So he had some talent. We bring him over, and from his team, NASA really is born. Yeah. And we have two of the greatest influences on our mind, on the American mind, in the Central Intelligence Agency in NASA, made up specifically of the very Nazis that supposedly lost World War II.
Right.
Yet they all, except for 21 guys at Nuremberg, they kind of all got out without a scratch.
Yeah. Well, they actually had pretty good gig going.
They
had top secret status.
They exited out of Germany through the Vatican. They went all over. They went all over the world, to Moscow, Washington D.C., Buenos Aires, you name it. Those are called the rat lines. And if you look at Russ Disdar's research, when he talks about the amount of mind control that is really in play in this world, and he plots it on a map, and he sees that it follows these rat lines perfectly. These people, their ideology about taking over the world was not beaten in World War II.
No,
Germany lost, but the Nazi ideology and many Nazis, they did not. They simply changed the banner from Germany to USA or Russia.
New T-shirt. Same game.
And they decided to start working in secret. And we are still on that system today. And they're on the verge of world domination. And again, because it's in secret and it's so unbelievable, people can't see it.
Well, what's really cool about that quote from Truman is, I would say most people won't believe that that's real, even though it's actually a quote from him.
Well, we finished CIA, so that's a good spot to end it for this week. So we'll be back next week, and we'll play the quotes game again. To God be the glory, great things he has done. Spin down the rabbit hole. See you next week.